Hi, guys. I want to talk to you a little bit about emails. Your book has a very good chapter in correspondence, but it doesn't really cover emails in any particular depth. And there's some things that I want to make sure you notice, a couple of things I want to add. In a lot of ways, emails are really easy to write, and you might even be wondering, why do I have to learn how to write an email? But the thing is that emails are the number one place where students embarrass themselves. Not students, people embarrass themselves in the professional world. Whenever people find out that I am teaching this class, they always ask me, are you teaching them how to write emails? Because honestly, when you work in the real world, you will see that you spend so much of your workday writing and responding to emails, and you will see so many bad and embarrassing emails, and you don't want to be that person. Okay, so the basics first before I go over the do not do's. Number one, an email is a lot like a memo. You have to have a very clear subject line that it really tells me what the subject is about. And if in fact, even if I'm in the middle of an email chain, if the subject changes in the middle of the conversation, like I send you an email, you send me an email back, I send you an email, if at any point we start talking about something completely different, you're supposed to go and change the subject, okay? So like if you write me an email asking me about homework and you write homework as the email subject, and then we're talking, and the next thing we know, we're talking about the date of the final exam. One of us should change the subject to date of the final exam. So subject has to be actually reflecting the subject of the email. Just like a memo, unlike a memo, you will write dear so-and-so, like a letter, but just like a memo, the first sentence after that dear so-and-so has to actually identify the subject of the email. Just like a memo or letter, you've got to choose between the direct or indirect method. And just like a memo, you can use bold, bullet points, italics, underline, and you want to make it really, really easy to read. You don't want to have a huge block of text, make it hard for your reader to read. You want to make it very easily skimmable. You want them to be able to figure out what they need to know as fast as they can, okay? And then you write sincerely, and then you sign. Okay, so in a lot of ways, it's a lot like a memo, with the difference being that you can write dear so and so at the top, and you write sincerely in your signature at the bottom. Okay, one thing about the signature at the bottom, when you write a letter, you write sincerely, you skip some lines, and you write your name, and then you sign in pen. Related to that, in an email in the professional world, you have to have what's called a signature. And a signature, if you look on your book, let me see what page this is, 255, you'll see it at the bottom. A signature is something that you go into the settings of your email program. I'm sorry, guys, my nose itches. You go into the email program, and you put in settings a signature, and then you type in the box like what you want, and that will automatically be put at the bottom of every email you send at work. And so if you email me here at FIU to my email, you'll see it when I respond. It says Jacqueline Amarim, PhD, instructor, English department, my email address, my phone number. If you email me through Canvas and I respond through Canvas, Canvas doesn't have a way to add a signature. You want to go ahead and create a signature for your email here at FIU and in the professional workplace. Okay, the signature is important because when you get stuck in an email chain with lots of people involved, sometimes you want to write an email to a specific person. Instead of having to hunt for their email address, it's at the bottom of their email right under their signature. Or if I want to call them to ask a question, their phone number is right there. Or if I get an email and I don't know who this person is, the signature tells me what their title is and what company they work for. So the signature is really important in the workplace, and you need to have a signature, okay? So an email is a lot like a memo, except it has to have dear so-and-so and sincerely so-and-so. But unlike a letter, you're not going to put addresses at the top, but you are going to add a signature at the bottom, okay? So that's the basics. Okay, now some do's and don'ts, okay? So there's email embarrassing stuff kind of falls into a couple of categories. Number one, control who gets the email. And there's a couple of ways to do this or not do it correctly. So number one, if your boss or somebody sends you an email and they send it to like a group of people, be very careful with reply all, Okay, so let's say my boss sends an email to me and everybody else in the company, and then I have a question just for my boss. I would make sure that I hit reply and that the email is only going to him or her and not to everyone. Because at work, people hate reply all. People will get very angry with you if they got 11 emails about a conversation that they're not part of. So, if you write reply all to your boss and your boss responds by clicking reply all and you ask another question and now you guys are going back and forth and every time you guys say something, I get an email, people get really annoyed by that. Please be very, very careful with reply and reply all. Okay, then there's CC and BCC that I want to go over. So if you've ever been to, I think mechanics still use it, but have you ever seen those papers? It's like 3 layers of paper, like a yellow one, a pink one, and a white one or whatever, and you sign and your signature goes through all 3 layers. That's called carbon copy. Okay, and CC stands for carbon copy. And a carbon copy email means I just want someone to see this email who is not actually really part of the email yet. So it's like handing somebody a photocopy of something. So a good way to use CC would be, like maybe you email me a question and I can't answer it, but I can say, oh, but Jessica can answer your question, and I'm CCing her on this email so that she will see the question and your contact information. That's a good use of CC. Be careful with doing it in aggressive ways. So let's say you and a coworker are arguing and you CC your boss. That would be seen as incredibly aggressive. You might find there's a situation for that, but you got to be real careful, okay? So CCing is including somebody in the conversation who's not directly part of the conversation so that they can read it. BCC stands for blind carbon copy. And what that does is if you CC Jessica from IT to answer the question, when the person you're sending it to can go to the top of the email and say, oh, it was sent to me and Jessica. With BCC, it works exactly the same, except when I go to the top of the email, I can't see who you sent it to besides me. So it's kind of exactly like if you sent it to me and then went back in and forwarded it to somebody else, but you do it in one step. And BCC is to keep people in a conversation without others knowing that they're part of the conversation. Again, you have to be really careful with that, but you might, for example, if you're arguing with a customer and you want your boss to be part of the conversation without the customer knowing that your boss is part of the conversation, or something's going on with a coworker and you want, somebody in on the conversation without them knowing. So there's reasons to use it, but you have to be careful because the person who is getting the email and responding to the email doesn't know that this other person is in the email, and they might feel betrayed if they find out later. So you have to be a little bit careful with that, but those are what those are for. So be careful of reply all, be careful of CC and BCC, but they all have good uses. One thing I want to say about reply all is you can use reply all. Just make sure that this is something that everybody on the list should be getting. If it's just somebody on the list that I want to talk to, do not hit reply all. Okay. The other thing that kind of embarrasses people or causes embarrassment is tone in an email. So when you are writing an email, you need to be really careful with your tone. So a lot of people put a lot of information in an email that, first of all, should never have been in an email. So because of this reply all, CC, BCC, anything you write in an email is going to get in the wrong person's hands. And you need to write all emails as if you thought the person that you least want to see this email is reading this email. So, for example, at FIU, we're a public university, which means we get government money. So because we're a government-funded university, all emails at FIU are public record, which means anyone can get a copy of any email that you are sending at FIU without any lawyer or anything. They can just get a copy of every email you've ever written. People sue for information requests and they can get a copy of your email. Your boss can get a copy of an email you didn't want your boss to see. So just be really, really careful about that. And your emails have legal implications as well. So be careful that they can be used in court. Now, about your boss and all of that other thing. First of all, never write something mean about someone down ever in black and white. I'm not saying don't talk bad about your coworkers, but don't do it in writing. Please, please do not do it in writing. Do not talk bad about your coworkers in a text message, an email, letter. No bad words about anybody you work with because it can be shared and used against you. If you are feeling angry or sad and you just feel like, man, I'm so angry, I want to quit, or I'm so sad, I want to cry at my desk, do not write an email when you're feeling that way because it will come out in the email. It's very, 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 very hard to write an email when you're angry and not write an angry email. So first of all, don't do that. And then importantly, people forget that you can use the phone or just go over and talk to the person. So if you're talking about something really sensitive and you, for example, let's say you're writing an email and you keep editing it and editing it and editing it because you're afraid that the person who's going to read it is going to take it the wrong way, or you're afraid it still sounds too angry or blah, blah. Stop writing it. Don't send it and call them or go over to their desk and talk to them. So like if you ever sent a text and then somebody read that text and took it the wrong way, people take things the wrong way in writing, even at a workplace. And if you're upset, that's probably what's going to happen. So don't put it in writing. Just go over and talk to them. Or if they're too far away from you, pick up the phone. There's no record. And anyways, you can hear their reaction and adjust what you're saying so that you can adjust to what they're interpreting it. So if they're getting angry, you can pull back a little bit to make sure that you're not causing a lot of problems at work. Whereas if you just send it in an email, now it's out there and they might be very offended or whatever, and there's nothing you can do to take it back. So don't be afraid to use the phone or go over to them. A couple of other things. I always tell students, be careful with laugh out loud and ha-ha and emojis. You really shouldn't use them at work, but in some workplaces people do use them. But don't use them unless it's okay at your workplace. But be careful with them because a lot of times when people write a inappropriate joke in an email, they know that they wrote an inappropriate joke in the email, and then they write like laugh out loud to make sure that you understood it was a joke. But that's like your subconscious telling you they might not get that it's a joke. So you want to be careful to not do that. If you feel like there's a joke that they might not get as a joke, or you say something kind of mean, but then you're like, haha, just kidding, don't do that. Delete it. Do not include it in the email, okay? And then a couple little tiny things left that I want to go over. Number one, always mention attachments, always explain attachments. So I should not get any empty email with nothing but an attachment in it. I'm not going to open that. That could be a virus. Number two, if you write me an email and you're talking about a meeting we're going to and then you just attach something without mentioning it, I might not see it. So you should always say, even if it's just a quick note, here's the attachment I promised or whatever, tell me there's an attachment, tell me what the attachment is. That's just common courtesy. And then you want to just make sure that your email is grammatically correct. You do not want to write slang just because it's an email. And more people write emails from their phones, which makes them feel like they're texting, and they use text type grammar. You can't do that. It still has to be a professional email. It should still say, dear so-and-so, have paragraphs, be proofread, say sincerely. It should not read like a text message, okay? So these are some of the things people do, but the key among them is tone. Don't sound overly angry. Don't sound whiny. Don't complain about coworkers. Don't have such bad grammar that people are like, can this person write? Those are the things that people do a lot of the time that embarrass them at work. So the key to this unit is learning how to write professionally always. So you have one activity where you're going to look over some example emails and you're going to identify some good emails and some bad emails. And then the big assignment at the end of this unit, you're going to write an email to your boss and you're going to try to write some stuff that's difficult to say without sounding rude. And you're going to try to say it without sounding rude. I mean, it is a hard assignment in the sense that it's just an email, but it's a hard email because you have to say some things that your boss might not want to hear, and you have to say it in a way that does not sound rude. That's the assignment. And so that's what we're working on here. You want to have a signature, correct formatting, good grammar, but mostly we're going to be working on tone. I want good tone, professional communication, even when you're feeling emotions like anger and frustration. Okay? So let me know if you have any questions. It's a short unit, but it's usually a very useful unit for students. But I'm here if you have any questions. Okay?